Have you ever wanted a game where you could play as Wally carting away trash, or looked out on the barren wastelands of games like Fallout or Borderlands and said if only we could purge the pollution found here and reclaim the biomes that used to flourish? Well, Devolver Digital has tasked one of their studios for creating a game that does just that, and created what is probably the most relaxing game to release this year. Let me know in the comments if you think there are any other games that could challenge it for that title. Now, I have already played through the tutorial, and I will be able to be a guide for what is going on, how the game works, and why I am making the decisions that I am making. We start here on a completely barren wasteland that we will transform into a flourishing area in a 3-stage mission. In the first mission, we will scrub away pollution, create grassland, and fill in the waterways. In the second stage, we will create more of a diversity of different biomes, and in the third stage, which is the kicker, we will have to recycle all of the structures we have built and leave without a trace. To begin, we'll put down a nice twin turbine here. This will provide power to the area. There is not a limit on how much power it produces, but there is a limited radius in which you can build buildings that are still able to be connected to the power grid. These toxin scrubbers have to be connected to power, and they're able to turn barren wasteland into fertile soil, which can be then primed for grassland. Water is essential for plant life to flourish, and so we have these two structures, the irrigator, which will be able to create grassland out of all this fertile soil, and we have the water pump, which will be able to restore water to these different creek beds and streams. This irrigator can be rotated to any configuration that you want to be able to extend the area of grassland that you are going to produce, and the green number that you see over top of it prompts us to a discussion of breaking down all that we have down here on the HUD. Here on the far left, we have our progress towards our current goal, and right next to it we have our currency represented by the number next to the leaf. We gain this whenever we create new plant life in the area, and we spend it to construct any of our buildings. Because only a few of our buildings right now will actually increase the amount of plants in the area, we have to be careful how we combine our different structures to be efficient in being able to purify the land without running out of resources. In the center here, we have our build menu with all of our buildings. We can reverse the last structure that we placed, which will completely revert any changes done to the map. And then right here, this odd number 1 above the wind turbine is actually a tab selector. As we reach different stages in our mission, we'll have different tabs with all new buildings specialized for being able to accomplish that portion of the mission. Here on the right, we see the region's current temperature and humidity. We have a target temperature and humidity we want to reach by changing the plant life in the area. Once we reach the center of the target zone, we have conditions that are ripe for natural rain to fall on the area. Reaching the target conditions promise additional rewards, and I'm not sure if those are things that would carry over between different campaign missions, or if it just indicates that you will get a natural thunderstorm on this mission, which will help improve the plant life all throughout the area. We are nearing completion of our first stage of mission objective, but this whole area remains barren, and this brings us to talk about our last two buildings that we haven't touched up to this point. First here we have the calcifier, which can be built on the edge of a stream bank, and it will cause a rocky bank to form, which will give us a foundation to be able to build a wind turbine where we might not otherwise be able to bring power to the region. We also here have the excavator, which has to be built next to power, and it will dig a trench down which can form a new waterway. This comes at the cost of using a violent explosion to do the digging, and the red area that you see around it will burn away all of the vegetation in the area and revert that land back into wasteland. Because of the nature of this excavator and its extreme cost, you want to think about the order that you are planning out revitalizing the different regions. Our plan here is to use this rocky outcropping to place down a wind turbine, and then we can bring in an excavator, which will be able to extend the waterway down towards this large region of barren area. Now that we have done this, we could choose to build a calcifier, get a stone bank, and leapfrog another wind turbine over here to be able to extend our power grid, or we could seek to reach further out into the wasteland by putting down another excavator and extending this irrigation channel down into this region. Now that we have water in the center of this area, we're going to calcify the end of the stream and have a nice rocky foundation to build our wind turbine. Now these particular efforts can get pretty costly, so we want to be careful in that we don't run out of resources to still be able to place down our irrigation and fertilize this area. Now, the entire map has not been painted in green, but we're still able to progress to the second stage of our mission, bringing in biome diversity to the area. We have to build areas of fields, wetlands, and forests, and to do that we have a set of new specialty buildings. First up here is a research center, which will just make our original buildings both cheaper and more effective. To facilitate constructing wetlands, we have the hydroponium here, which can be placed on irrigation buildings that are next to water, and it will create wetlands within the area adjacent to these streams. The new plant diversity will also increase the amount of currency that we have. To create fields, we have beehives, which we place in the existing trees, and they will create flowering fields in the area around them. Now, even though this irrigation building is not the most productive, it does extend the reach of our field that we want to place by going here in this tree. Some of these areas are proving hard to reach, but if we are effective with the rest of the area that we have currently developed, we should be okay to complete our mission. Forest land is the most challenging to develop because a forest has to be built upon fertile ash, and to facilitate the fires we have 2 buildings here that will allow us to burn through this vegetation and create soil ripe for a new forest. First, we have the solar amplifier here, which has to be connected to power and provides amplified sunlight. Then we have the desiccator, which has to be built on a field next to an area where we have the solar amplifier, and then it will start a forest fire which will continue to burn until it hits a river or other natural land break. As the fire purges the old vegetation, it paves the way for stronger plants to take root. That burn was able to be very extensive and gives us a large region to plan out our new forest. With our fields largely burned away, we now need to replant them by establishing beehives at the edge of our current forest. The final element to develop is now the rest of our wetlands, and we'll be good to go on to the third stage of the mission. To be able to finish off our wetlands, we could start getting creative by using the excavator to bring water around existing irrigators to establish more wetlands, but I also see an opportunity in finally bringing vegetation to this wasteland area over here. Starting out, we need a calcifier to get a foundation for a wind turbine, and then a few scrubbers to be able to bring the land up to standard for irrigation. The water pump will fill in the waterway here, and then the irrigator we want to make sure is already placed next to the water to be able to establish new wetland. The little loving details that the developers have added, such as birds beginning to fly overhead as you start to purify the area, is very interesting, and there's plenty of other Easter eggs to keep your eyes peeled for. Now we have to construct an airship entirely out of recycled materials and recycle all of the buildings that we have placed out thus far to be able to leave without a single trace. We'll put down the construction site here next to the main waterway, and then set down our little drone, which will use the waterways as a roadway to be able to go and pick up recycled materials from all of these buildings. We have both the silo and the loading dock here, which will serve to recycle all of the buildings within their radius and work as checkpoints for the drone to go and pick up materials to bring back to the construction site. The pound dock here will allow the drone to be able to make it up to the raised waterways. The kicker here is that you do have to also recycle the pound dock before you manage to leave. On our last tab here on the building menu, we have 2 new buildings that are dedicated entirely to affecting the climate. We have the temperature pylon and then the humidity pylon. If these are placed next to vegetation, they will increase their stat. If they're placed next to wasteland, they will decrease that stat. We look like we are spot on in terms of temperature, but we need to increase the humidity a lot to be able to hit our target. This 11% is going to take us right onto the target area, and we'll be able to see the rewards that we gain. The thunder in the air is a beautiful sound, and now it's time to recycle all of these buildings that we have so carefully placed out. The rainstorm here will bring vegetation even to the final corners of wasteland and some of the burned out areas, so that we will have an entire map full of greenery. and it will also give us enough currency to be able to finish out this mission quite easily. We can chain silos to condense all of the recycled materials, and it looks like our spaceship is starting to come underway. I hope in the full game that there are rewards for ending the game with a high amount of currency to encourage you to be efficient in terms of your cleanup. Here in just the demo, we can clean up very easily with the 2,000 that we have left over. I suppose that whatever you have left over you could consider your high score and then see how much you could score mission over mission. The spaceship is starting to look almost space-worthy, and we only have a few more areas of the region to clean up. Once we reach the final percentage points of recycling left, then the game will call out with arrows in case you are missing any buildings underneath all of this vegetation or potentially a stray cliff. This irrigator is the last structure we have to recycle, and then we are ready to launch. As the rain starts to fall, once again, that is our cue to leave with a job well done. And this has been the Terra Nil demo. It is completely free on the Steam page. I highly encourage you guys to check it out if you liked what you saw. It is coming out as part of a festival that Steam is doing for a bunch of indie games that are releasing in the near future. Let me know if there are any other of those games that you guys find interesting and would like to see me play around with. This game is super relaxing, so if you are looking for a game that you can kind of unwind as you play, then I highly recommend picking this one up. The concept that you have a city builder type game where then you need to clear away all of the buildings that you have built as your final mission and leave without a trace, I think is incredibly interesting and very original for a game like this. As we see here, we have one small fractured landmass that we have cleansed, but there are plenty of other ones that are still barren, suggesting that there is a lot more work to do in the main game. I hope that the different campaign missions focus around different set pieces and mission objectives rather than just more difficult criteria. The demo map actually randomizes every time you play it, so the different campaign missions are not going to be focused around just playing unique maps. Like if you enjoyed the video, comment on what you think of Terra Nil and if there are any other of these games from the festival you would like to see me try out. Subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Thank you guys for watching and have a good one.